We have been studying the book of James. Don't know if you noticed that. Did you notice that? And this morning we are moving into chapter 3. We are going to pick out of this chapter a continuation of the messages that God is revealing through this chapter. He's admonishing us the way that we should live until He comes. Last time we spoke on your obligation to God and saving faith. And what was the other one again? I gave you one. Saving faith, serving faith, sending faith. That's what we spoke about last time. That God is equipping us for now and the future. God is equipping us by saving faith, serving faith, and sending faith. God is equipping us. Today we are going to speak on how to build and maintain relationships in 2018. How to build and maintain relationships in 2018. This is what I see in this passage. God's message today is to two words: remove and refresh. Those are two words I want to leave with you this morning. Remove and refresh. Remove and refresh your garden, your field, your farm, that you may be more productive in 2018. You don't realize we all have a garden, the garden of life. God says, remove and refresh your garden for more productivity this new year. First of all, remove. The passage was read clearly and very well. Take your Bibles and turn to the passage, or look at it on look at it on the overhead. We're going to put it up. James chapter 3. We're going to start at the end because the first part of the chapter is just questioning you or how your tongue is. Just questioning, not answering the question, but just guiding you to remember that as the ship has a rudder, the tongue is also significant to life and to others. Do you realize that all these things are in the Bible? Strange but true. But chapter 3 and verse 13 begins a new admonition. And we're going to keep it up for a while. Let's read it. Who is wise and understanding among you? Just stop there. Who is wise and understanding among you? The man is made with a natural ability to interact with one another. Man is made with a natural ability to interact with one another. But there are limits and imaginable lines governing this interaction. You can interact, but there are limits and guides to do this interaction. You're not just free. We are all people, but we have differences. Amen? We have differences. For guidance, we are exposed, the apostle James says, we are exposed to two kinds of wisdom. The question is, who is wise among you? The answer is, you're exposed to two kinds of wisdom. One that produces deeds done in humility which comes from heaven, expressed in the divine nature which indwells the believer. Two types of wisdom. One, heavenly wisdom, which indwells the believer by the divine nature. And the divine nature is aimed at glorifying God. The other operates within the sinful nature, producing deeds out of bitterness, pride, selfishness, and expressed in what we call the sinful nature. So one operates by God, and the other operates by man, the sinful nature. Where are they? Where are those two natures? In us. Every human being possesses those two kinds of nature, those two kinds of wisdom that you can use to fulfill your time on earth. He suggests that James suggests that we should be smart and choose to be influenced by the divine nature, that your deeds may appear like good fruit, a bearing from tremendous tree. You have a choice. Those two natures are there influencing you, but you have a choice. James says, be smart. Apply the divine nature, that your field, your garden may bear good fruit. Are you with me? Yes. My friends, the alternative to choosing the divine nature will be like the hurricane last time. And there are many fruits coming up. I had fruits coming up. I had banana coming up. And my wife reaped some gungu. You know gungu? Hands up those who don't know gungu. You know it, but you call it by a different name. Pardon me? Peas. Oh, it's the same one they call pigeon peas. Oh, I didn't know that. But she reaped some peas. And she opened the pod and showed me the fruits inside. They wither. They wither. They don't look bossy and healthy. Because of the hurricane. Hurricane bruised them and beat them up. The sinful nature produces fruit that are beaten up and bruised. James says, be wise and choose the nature which builds and not break down. If we continue to be led by the wisdom of human nature, sin, your tree will bear unhealthy fruits. The Bible says we are born in sin and you have the nature, but you have a choice to be influenced by the divine nature. The psalmist says in Psalm 103, verse 12, Psalm 103, verse 12, the Bible says, as far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed your transgression from you. We're talking about the necessity of removing. That your challenge to begin this new year, you must remove. Our opportunity. We have an opportunity to remove. We must ask Jesus to give us the appropriate wisdom to damage the source that caused us problems in our relationships last year. Reflect upon last year. Reflect upon your relationships. Ask God. I'm sure that many of us were not so satisfied. Were you? Well, don't say it. But say it in your heart. And I say, if you are not satisfied, if you were not satisfied about your relationships, and there are many relationships that perhaps we built last year. God's word says, ask Jesus Christ to remove, to damage, I said damage the source that caused us problems in our relationships last year, such as unhappiness. If you suffer that unhappiness, conflicts, if you had conflicts, mistrust, disagreements, and malice, and so on. These are the fruits that the unhealthy tree bears. Ask God to remove them, remove the source from you and from them. Let's read Galatians 5, 16 and 17. Galatians 5, 16 and 17. The Bible says, let's read. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That is what we're talking about. We were plagued with the lust of the flesh last year. Read on, please. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. The battle that goes on, the battle that went on in our relationships, the battle that went on in our hearts, in our minds last year. And these are contrary to one another. What brings conflict? What do you mean by conflict? Contrary to one another. So that you do not do the things that you wish. Read on, please. Move on. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another. Move on, please. Next verse. All right. Galatians 5:16 and 17 says, the sinful nature produces lust, which produces conflict. But we are going to hold it. We're going to come back to it. We must ask God to take away the source which produces these outcomes. Answer to prayer. Answer to your prayer, if you ask God to do it, will allow the tree of righteousness in the believer to be more productive in this year. When you pray, God will answer, and your field will be more productive to produce good relationships this year. If we live on earth, lest you say, well, there may be some people who sometimes don't think that you're living on earth, so it doesn't apply to you. But if you live on earth, the human nature will be alive in us and bear fruit of unrighteousness. But friends, our connection to Jesus will give us the ability to grow and maintain healthy relationships. In other words, friends, your relationship can change. It can change if you commit yourself to prayer and draw from God and assure yourself that your connection with Him is quite clean. You can have victory in your relationships. Because, as I said before, you have the ability, and God has made us to interact with people. In other words, you can't live alone. You can't survive alone. You must build relationships. And those relationships are like garden. Your garden. Even in the Christian marriage, which is one of God's highest forms of relationships, the husband and the wife cannot lose sight of the fact that the devil is like a roaring lion seeking to destroy your relationship. Let me repeat. I say there is conflicts that went on in last year, some of which you experienced, and that damaged your relationships. I'm not talking about just marriage, your relationships, whether with your boss or whatever. But if you ask God to come into your relationship, it will be different. And we are citing marriage. Marriage is the closest thing to the kind of relationship that God's word talks about and is expecting. And my friends, I'm saying that the husband and wife who are the leaders of the marriage must not lose sight of the fact that doesn't matter what education you possess, what experience you have had, but the devil is like a roaring lion seeking to mash up your marriage. Don't think that you are exclusive. You think devil afraid of parson? The devil is not afraid of my relationship. Can mash it up. Every day and try to mash it up. Soon after they said, I do, and settle down to live, Satan begins to bring up some things which were already dismissed by the couple. Sometimes, my friends, what is concealed in the individual's mind, because that's where it begins. Sometimes what is concealed in your mind, in your relationship, that is causing your blood pressure to always fluctuate, is factual. Sometimes it's factual. But my friends, it is irrelevant to your union. Do you understand what I'm saying? Say, sometimes what is causing you to have the situation which is affecting you psychologically is true, but it's irrelevant. You did talk about it already. For example, you married somebody who already had a kid and they're trying to fulfill the responsibility. And when you were courting, man, you didn't see any problem. But after you marry, the man or the woman has problems in trying to fulfill their responsibility because it's a problem. What I'm saying, my friends, it's true that he had the relationship. It's true that she had. You talk about it already. So it is not relevant to your marriage, no. To your union, it's not married. It's gone already. And nothing can take it back. Face the future. Face